All right. I guess the introductory comments. I didn't tee those up. Do you have that teed up?
Yeah, I got it down now.
Okay.
So, hello everyone. This is the first Conservation Commission of 2021. It is January 4th. This is a regular Conservation Commission meeting. The chairman is Larry Dunn. Members of the public can participate by raising their virtual hand. You would do so by either hovering your mouse on the top of the screen or on the bottom of the screen, depending on whether you have a PC or Mac device. Call-in listeners can dial *9 and we'll be able to see their hand is raised and the chairman will call on you one by one. This public communication happens during public communications item on the agenda, and other items can also be, you can also participate in other items by the request of the chairman as well. Free to raise your hand at any time. With that, I'll hand it over to the chair, Larry Dunn, to roll call and start the meeting.
Thanks, Bruce. So there is an attendee out there. So while you're letting her or him, depending on who's actually on the end of that. All right, let's do the roll call. So Larry Dunn, chair. I'll go on my screen. So it'll be Tom.
Tom Olson, member.
Karen.
Karen Scapino, member.
Michelle.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
Ray.
Ray Rafferty, vice chair.
And Ann.
Ann Schmidt, member.
All right, and we have one absentee, Kristen, but we have a quorum. So the first item of business is approval of minutes from November 30th. Let me zip down to there. So let me, are there any? Yes, Ann.
This is Tom Olson. I have no comments and recommend we approve them as presented.
Ann?
Larry?
Yes.
I was not at that meeting and I noticed that I'm on the roster for having voted also as in attendance. So on the first page, the roll call, which I was absent.
All right, thank you.
And so both of the votes on that day also, I should be taken off.
All right, would you like to amend your motion, Tom?
I amend our motion to delete Ann Schmidt in all places in the meeting minutes.
Aw,
Not as a member. We'll keep her as a member.
Right.
thank you.
And absent under roll call.
Yes.
I second the motion.
All right, discussion. Seeing none, let's call for a vote. Let's do a simple show of hands. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
So 6. I got to count right. All right, so that has been approved. And the next one is public communications. So we do have 2 attendees.
If any of the attendees would like to speak, just raise your virtual hand and call on you one at a time. Not seeing any hands.
All right. Now, we did get some letters from the public. Should we do them now, or there's some items further in the agenda that they relate to? I guess it should be the ones that have been publicized. So let's see which ones are in. Public input attachments. All right, so in the agenda, there are, I mean, for you folks to bring it up, or maybe I can share it and just quickly go through that. Let's see, can I share screen? And it would be Okay. So this is what was in the agenda.
Mhm.
The first is ARC. Now, this overlaps with the chairman's report, I guess, because I did have some discussions with the CEO of ARC, which is they work with providing jobs for disabled, and one of the things they do is they sort and package nip bottles, etc. And they then sell those, and they get the donations. If well, in this state we don't have it yet, and they were very interested in supporting the state statute or the impending state statute on NIP. So that letter from her is in there. I did ask her to provide input from their perspective, and they do process a lot of bottles and cans. And we'll see as we go through this process, and we'll get to the survey later in the meeting. The other item is the GC3, and I think, Tom, that was more from you. Do you want to have a few words on the GC3?
Yes, this is Tom Olson. A couple items. First off, there was two seminars that I sat in on webinars. One was on the a public meeting and a no net loss of forest webinar. It was run by the state. It was very well attended. I got some good information in regard to how things are being done in other areas. And one of their big proponents things was to be supportive of putting things in land into PA 490 programs and to continue forwarding that effort within the state. So I did do a look at, are there any parcels that are not in 490? Surprisingly, we have a lot of parcels in Groton in the 490 program already, which is good. And there's only, I think, 1 or 2 parcels that were of greater than 25 to 50 acres that are not currently in the program and are still out and being, but they're in the tax structure as available for either industrial or commercial use or residential usages. And so having only that small number out there is probably reasonable. And so I felt that we've done our fair share as far as from what the no net forest webinar recommendations were. The other one was run by Ms. Dykes, who's the DEP person from the state, and so she went through and there was 2 different sessions of this in regard to what the climate change, the governor's climate change process, and the both looking at the mitigation, adaptation, and resiliency subcommittees that met, and they outbriefed all their recommendations, and those are out for public comment right now. It's on, there's a website available through DEP that the public can comment on those. My review of these was, it was a very thorough, well done explanation as far as on what things people should be doing, as far as where the state should be moving towards climate change response, as Governor Lamont was asking for. And I had no comments to them all. I thought they were very well presented. And that's as far as from, and I don't feel, and I think that the process is in place, that we as a commission really don't need to do anything more other than to be aware of it at this point in time. And I have no recommendations on a go forward basis other than if people want to comment generally, it's available. That's all I had. Thank you.
I can't hear you, Larry.
Is he saying anything?
I don't know.
Nah, I never talk, Michelle, So yeah, I was on mute. So
I just
I was on
lost
mute.
something.
There were a few additional feedback items, but when we get to the right agenda item, I'll bring them up. Speaking of the agenda, the next item on the agenda is the election of officers, given it's now January. So I think with the way we normally do this is we open up the floor for nominations, and I guess we'll do them a roll at a time. So the floor is open for nominations for the chairman for 2021.
This is Michelle Fitzpatrick. I nominate Larry Dunn.
I'll second. Tom Olson.
Are there any additional nominations? All right, it's been proposed. Is there a show of hands and a vote for Larry Dunn as chairman for 2021?
Larry, why don't we do a whole slate? Why don't we go ahead down with the rest, and then we can just vote one time for the whole slate.
I'm not sure it makes a difference.
Larry, I lost, all of a sudden, I can hear everybody, but I can't see anybody. And I'm not sure why.
We see you.
We see you.
You do.
Yep.
It says immersive online experiences are on Zoom, experience on Zoom.
All right. Well, we can see you and hear you, so.
Okay, so you can see my vote.
Okay, yes, we can see your vote. Well, since it's already open and on the floor, so I need to call for that vote just to keep with the rules. So all in favor, raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. The next position is for vice chair. Are there
I nominate
nominations?
Bray. Michelle Fitzpatrick. I nominate Bray Rafferty.
It's Tom Olson. I second it.
Are there any other nominations? All right, so I'll call a vote for Bray. Bray, it's on there. Karen, you got to raise your hand or not? Okay, that's okay. You don't have to, but.
No, I'm
right.
back on.
Okay, so that's unanimous as well. And then the third position is for secretary. I will look for nominations. Tom?
I'll nominate Michelle Fitzpatrick for secretary.
Are there any additional nominations? Oh, okay. Yes, Bray.
I second.
We have a second for Michelle. Are there any other nominations? All right, having said that, we'll do a vote for Michelle as secretary for 2021. Raise your hand and unanimously passed. And we have a full slate. So thank you all. And I'm sure this year will be as productive as last year. We'll get out another whole new document, right? Nah, we won't. We won't. Okay, that's a lecture. Okay, next is there's a variety of topics on the open space plan. The first one is the status of the posting. Other than the website, which I'll get to in a minute, is it out there, Bruce, in any place people can get to? If they, because last time I searched on it, it did not come up on the town website.
Well, yes, it's in all the agenda packets and finalized. So if you went to the agenda packet on December 7th, it would be there. I know Larry's been working with our IT department to get it on the Conservation Commission website. I believe that happened last week between holidays. So you can find it there on our website and also in the packet information as of now.
All right.
Sorry,
So yes, right.
question to Bruce. Is the town website going to be offering, when you go to the website, I mean, you're talking right now that if you wanted to see conservation plan, you got to dig down to know where to go. They used to have listings of maybe 6, 7, 8 items that you can use to click on and go to. And with the new website, I don't see any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on there. It's a little harder to see. So if you go to our main page, there's kind of like a tab that comes out on the bottom of it. I don't really know how else to describe it than that, but it looks kind of like an overlay tab that comes out where it says news and announcements. So the news and announcements are still there. Like the NIP survey, for an example, was on the news and announcements. The open space plan isn't on that because we thought it would be more appropriate as like kind of a final permanent spot for it to be on the Conservation Commission webpage within the Town of Groton website. So that's where that is right now. It's not as an announcement.
Yeah, I'll show you where it is in a second, Ray, but we're having difficulty for a couple reasons. Number one is the town totally redid their website. And second, trying to find a home for it wasn't doing a lot. So it seemed easier just to get it in our website. And that was almost easier to do. So hopefully today we'll have a vote on the website. And all it takes is a simple command, because it's out there. You just can't, it's just not visible to the public yet. All right. But the website is active and alive. And we'll get to that and then about another 3 items.
And I would just add that those news and announcements, they're very temporary. So if we put it up there and, 10 important things happen in the town, that plan's bumped out. So it's really good to have a permanent home for it because those announcements change often.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to improve visibility and availability on things like the open space plan. Speaking of which, from a content point of view, we had the parcel update, and Tom and Karen and Michelle, I know there was a document put out. Did you want to share it and take us through that, Tom, or I can
Yes, I
bring it
would.
up? Okay.
I will share my screen here. You should be seeing a Excel spreadsheet. This is the same that's in the package. Also, it's a little bit hard to read in the package because it's all micro printed. What I wanted to is kind of talk in generalities of what I've been doing along with Michelle and Karen. We've tried to have a couple of meetings. It's been very spotty, but I've been working forward with everything here. What I've done is I've taken the Appendix A of the plan and updated it by adding in a couple of columns. One is a column I here of Parks and Rec classification. The Parks and Rec's master plan identifies items as natural resources, mini parks, neighborhood parks, community parks, various, throughout for both open space as well as for the town owned managed open space. This is where you get in the golf courses, special uses, trails, and this type of stuff. And then also for the town open space like with facilities spaces. So I've kind of taken and broken into the 3 categorizations that's in the POCD, and then added how the Parks and Rec's master plan incorporated things. I also incorporated another column that talks about the 2016 map that has the different types of parks. There's an open space with no recreation and an open space and a park with recreation. There's 2 color codings that were done with this town map back in 2016. I also added a column in regard that has the assessment of the deed that is located on the town GIS website. Some deeds are silent, okay, in regard to whether this property is designated as open space. But there's a hyperlink to each one of these deeds that in the Excel spreadsheet. And so you can go in and actually pull up the deed and take a look at it and go through it. And some of the deeds are silent open space because they're from 1969, before there was the concept of open space existed. So you'd expect that, okay? Let me get back to our spreadsheet here. And so I kind of documented those. And for those type of situations, in talking with Barbara Tarbox, who is the former town clerk, and she has extensive knowledge on these deeds that were fairly old, okay, because she was the town clerk when we got the back in 1988 and 1990 time frame, when the town did a bunch of stuff relative to open space and did the bonding and all that. And what her proposal recommendation is for us to basically get those deeds together that we feel are open space, and then put a deed restriction, a one-time deed restriction across the multiple deeds, and then have that just referenced in the recorded as a one-time deal for the deeds that we would, the parcels that we're interested in putting some type of protection on. So we need to go take a look at that. There's a couple of deeds that are silent, but they appear to be open space. And so what we need to do is go in and take a look. Because the deed is silent to it, we need to go take a look at what Barbara is saying, is that the plot map that's attached to it, but I can't see it, is not visible, but it is recorded in with the original deeds, but it's just not what got scanned and put up on the website, but it is available at the town hall. Is to go take a look at that plot map. If it says it's open space, then it's open space. And sometimes, you get duplication of that, where the plot map says it, or the deed says, take a look at the plot map for that open space, that type of stuff. So I have seen some deeds that go both ways, but there's a couple here that we need to go into the town hall. We can't do that till after the 11th of January, okay, because of the COVID restrictions. But these would be the ones that we'll, either myself or Karen or Michelle, one of us will go in and take a look at those, okay? Then we got down to the next batch of stuff, is stuff that is a small acreage, okay? 2 acres, 1 acre, 0.3 acres, 0.09 acres. And what I did there is I said, wait a second, this is kind of, do I worry about protection and having protection in place on those small acreages, okay? So what I did is I took a look at the state statutes as far as what is the minimum requirement for public utilities and that stuff that are municipalities for disposition of land, okay? And there's actually a state statute, and that's attached in your in your booklet in regard to Connecticut State Statute Section 16-50B and C. And what that does is that there's a beautiful outline of what the state's policy is in regard to open space and the orderly control and development of remaining natural resources. It's actually a very well-written document. And that, and it basically says that anything if it's greater than 3 acres, that you need to go out and advertise that you're going to be getting rid of this, okay? And so using that logic, I applied that 3 acre cutoff to what we need to be protecting. I think that's a reasonable assumption that we can make. We can justify it. It says, here's the state law. It says if a municipality has to do something with greater than 3 acres, it needs to go through a formalized process. And so if it's less than 3 acres, it's basically what I would say is de minimis, which would mean that we can absorb those losses, or we don't really need to go through worry about protection of a smaller than a 3 acre parcel, and be in consonance with what the state's asking for relative to protection of open spaces. And so that helped, not to say we don't worry about it, but as far as from worrying about the deed protection at this point, which is what we're working on right now, is identification of those areas where we need to have some type of protection. I then took a look at and found also a number of deeds, a number of parcels that there is no physical deed posted. Some of these are really old, okay, from 1958, that type of stuff. Other ones, I don't know. There are areas that butts the Board of Ed, so maybe it was a part of the Board of Ed, and I don't find Board of Ed stuff posted typically, and those type of things. But those are ones we need to go back and take a look at some more deed books. Another 5 of them or so. Also, some of them have that the linkage is broken between what's got scanned and posted into the clerk records database, and then the linkage that the GIS uses to go find that. Some of them are showing up as either like a wrong deed stuff that has a name change as opposed to what should be there. When I identified those and talked to the GIS guy, he basically says, hey, he just gives us the link that the people over in the deed recorder's office gives him, and that's all he can do. I can't, so it has to be, I'll have to go in and talk face to face with the deed people if on those issues, if we can't find a deed to see if there's open space protection on it. Then we'll have to get that corrected in the GIS system also. But then all this stuff here that's purple is that there's a statement that particular deed is supposed to be open space, which is very encouraging, which is, I think, one of the things we were originally concerned with as the commission a year ago when we started thinking about this, is do we actually have sufficient protection and stuff? And there's like of the 100, we've got 70% or about 65% coverage of protected spaces. You take out the other 3 acres, small decisions, and we're down to just these things in here for pure dedicated open space that we need to go resolve. We've got basically 1, 2, 4, 6, 8 items to go take a look at, and then that may or may not result in proposing a deed restriction. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, another dozen or so things that we would potentially be taking to the town attorney to say, hey, I want to propose a deed restriction on these particular parcels. Okay, so that's kind of where we stand at this point. So over the next month, we'll go in and talk, do the review later in the month when we can get into the town hall, find out, and then take a look at, make a recommendation for the next meeting as far as on the way forward. See if the current town clerk would be supportive of proposing a deed restriction on these areas that we were clearly identified as open space things, and then go from there. Okay, so, and then I did the same thing for the town managed open spaces. These are areas principally handled by the Parks and Rec. Okay, I identified some areas where they should be doing things and they're not. Those are the ones that are in blank in here. Regarding the classifications, there's a couple of items that I would have expected them to be dealing with relative to particularly some of these memorials and stuff, because they have that categorization in there, but they just are, I don't know if they're not doing anything because there's no maintenance required or what, but a couple of things that, now when I talked to Mark Berry, he said, as far as where they are on the Parks and Rec master plan update, I know that everybody was familiar this past summer. There was a number of focus groups and things that gave you the impression that they would be updating their master plan because it's over 10 years old. And what I got from Mark was that they basically ran out, they only had so much money to get the consultant and they focused on taking a look at what was happening out at the Mystic Oral School and that whole thing and the Pratt building upgrade and stuff is where they basically focused their master plan on. They never got around to any of the administrative type of stuff in their master plan. And that's all been deferred to 22, 23 timeframe. So they're not going to be there. They basically said, you can provide us this information, but we're really not going to do anything with it because we have to go forward and get more funding through the town to continue updating of our master plan. So I said, okay. But the same grouping I did, they have a bunch of silent deeds. I think there's things again for this categorization of town-owned managed spaces that it'd be good to propose deed restrictions also in that area. A couple of things to go take a look at in the deed book. As far as some of these neighborhood parks, this is where you get up to Deerfield. It's an open space area. It has 50 acres in it, but it has a playground on it. It's been put in there, so that's kind of shows up in here as town managed open space because there's some kind of recreation facilities on it. There also is a frisbee court on it and that type of stuff. So it's showing up in this area. But from our perspective, I would still, on these larger parcels, I would still be recommending that we put a proposed deed restriction on that as open space from the town's perspective. Again, not so much, we only found 4 of them that actually had protections in place in regard to on the deed itself. The rest of them are, half of them are silent. The other half, there's just no deeds recorded, either because of age or these errors that there's a lot of errors in here in regard to the what's been loaded by the. But again, these have been, relatively speaking, town managed places that the town really hasn't been worrying about when they get into the individual parcels and those updates coming from the deed recorder's office to the GIS people. So not much I can do about that at this time. We'll continue to take a look at that. The last area is a town-owned open space light with it's open space light, but it has a hardcore facility on it. These would be all your schools, your sanitation and pumping stations, and that type of stuff. Some of these have deed restrictions for sewage and also a conservation. One of them has a conservation easement set aside, which is the Kolonowski School area. But a lot, again, most of this, essentially all the schools are, the deeds are silent. There's just nothing that's ever been loaded into the GIS, so I can't tell. But I would suspect that some of them don't really have restrictions on it because of the age on them. They're all fairly greater than 50 years old. So on the schools but what I did is I highlighted areas in here out in red. These are the schools that are basically up for retooling as not as a school, okay? Such as your Noang School, the William Seeley School, which we've already gotten involved with. We know that the Claude Chester and Sarah Butler ones are coming up next. We've got the Groton Heights School. There's all either some type of sale is planning or is slated for closure. So these are the ones that we should be kind of watching for as far as from a conservation aspect, as far as what's going to be happening with that property. Are they going to subdivide it? Some of these are very small properties. Do I need to worry about them? Don't know. But these are things that we as a Conservation Commission, that's why I highlighted these in red as far as items that we should be kind of watching for. I did the same thing for the city. They have a much smaller inventory, obviously. They're at about the same percentage of the deed states as open space. So 4 out of 7, they're clearly the deed's in place. They've got one silent one, and then they have two silents and one that there's no deed available, okay? Again, it's a small, less than 3 acre parcel. So these, again, I would be proposing the Birch Plain Creek and Washington Park. They're fairly well established park areas, and for proposed deed restrictions there. They only had one. The one is Eastern Point Beach. Again, for there, the deed is silent from 1964. So I would propose a restriction on that. And then their managed space is they have a bunch of stuff that is tied to the Groton utilities and the reservoirs, and that's essentially a special category for the town, for the city. And all that, there's a lot of acreage there at 1,257 acres, which is good news from a perspective. And it's all, and I did find the protection through they're all in place. We then got on to this. I took a look at the state property that's within the town boundaries. Again, similar breakdown of around 60 to 70% protected, either through a DEEP protection or there's no deed, which a lot of these show up as, because again, but they're all small parcels that the state owns, 0.08 acres, that type of stuff. I'm not going to really worry too much about those. And then they have a few silent ones. The most interesting one was this Sixpenny Island. It's a 14-acre parcel there on Amtrak along the Mystic River from 1972. It was a special act by the state where they basically got the land for, but we probably should follow up to see because at the time DEP really wasn't in place, and so is it a DEP? It's listed on the town website in inventory as a wetlands, but I can't find any. I don't know where that came from because it doesn't correspond to anything that DEP has or anything else. So we need to kind of sort this one out in regard to what type of protections really in place. I would suspect that DEP is monitoring it if it's a wetlands, And then if I can get confirmation of that, then I'll slide it down in, to the lower half and put it in purple. Okay. For the open space with state facilities, with facilities, again, this gets into your schools, El Abrazo, Avery Point, that type of stuff. Again, most of those, again, are no deeds. That they just don't have anything, no options are available. Some of theirs is all tied into with the Mystic Oral School. That's why it's in red over here in regard to, because we know that that's in process. They've already identified the 35 acres that the DEP is going to maintain control on. So I suspect that most of these things, once all that sale gets put in place and the deeds get updated to reflect, I know Bruce was very familiar with what's going on with the individual parcels and stuff. As the sales getting put together, we just need to make sure that all gets properly recorded and put under DEP control so that they've got the protection on it. And then the last batch is the I-95 type of stuff, and they've got under Department of Transportation. You know, a lot of these parcels, even though they're fairly small, were sold to the Department of Transportation, and so with that, it's kind of a special category. I'm not going to worry about it. The state's got I-95 is I-95 as far as on this type of stuff, so I'm not going to try to get involved with that. But some of them, they also have some interface with the Department of Transportation, owns stuff that's on the Mystic Oral School, so it's kind of a mess. But again, we'll just wait and see how that all parcels out. The last category is in regard to the privately held dedicated open spaces. I went through I kind of put these by in the sort here is first by the owners, by Avalonia, then Groton Long Point Association, and those type of stuff. And I did the same thing for them as far as whether their deeds are silent or whether they've got their state's open space. They've got some. Avalonia has some beautiful wording in some of their deeds relative to the perpetuity and open space items on the deeds that they have. But some of their deeds, when they have no deeds posted, all they have is like a name change for Avalonia because they've had it for so long. So we just have to. I wasn't able to verify anything. I'm probably not going to worry because really it's an Avalonia issue, and likewise. There was one that I did find here, an error relative to the Avery Memorial, which is right next to the CVS, next to the big Y there, across the street. The CVS is that it's mislabeled on the town map. Okay, where the town really the Avery, the deed says that the Averys own the quarter acre or the 0.14 acres. That the physical monument is at. There's a big tall statue with a bust at the top of it. That's actually owned by the Avery Memorial Association. The town owns the property around it, okay, about another acre and a half. So there's another error in the system there that needs to get corrected compared to what the deeds say. And GOSA, they've done a very good job. All their stuff is protected in purple, okay? And so, because most of their stuff has been fairly new acquisitions, all within the last 10 to 12 years or so. And then the last thing is the privately held managed open space. This gets you down a couple of interesting ones here. I know that Ray has mentioned this Elm Grove Cemetery. I did a little research on that, okay? And this gets you into, I find out that the Elm Grove Cemetery is no longer listed as an exempt with the IRS, the federal IRS. And I questioned the town assessor. I went to her and said, "Hey, these guys aren't a 501c3 anymore. So why are you giving them exempt status on this 50 acres? Because when I go pull it up, I see a gravel pit. Okay, I don't see a cemetery there. Okay." And she got back to me fairly promptly. We had a long discussion by emails over a couple hours. Is that, as far as from her understanding, is that they may be in violation or been delisted from by the feds because of a failure to submit their 990 exempt status document. But from her viewpoint, they are still acting as an exempt organization, as the cemetery. It's still over on the Stonington side of the river, But what they use that facility for is for gravel and different building materials to support the cemetery itself. And so, and she says she's had people out as the assessors have gone in and inspected the place and that type of stuff, and feel that it's well within the intent of exempt activity. And so I don't see that coming on the market very soon. And so we were just going to put it in this privately held managed open space categorization for their gravel pit operation for the cemetery. And then likewise, the Shinnecock Beach Company, which is next to Eastern Point Beach, is the private beach. So there's this, their deed is silent, but it's from 1980, so probably not anything for open space. And then the Mumford Cove Association, their beach is listed as an open space area, okay, and has that open space protection in their deed. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised by that. So, and then the last portion of the thing was the Public Act 490 Farms and Tax Purposes. I did not do anything with this and just left wherever it said the Conservation Commission listings there stayed the same as those. And so based on all that, I did add in a couple of, as going through all these parcels and stuff and searches around, I did find a couple of additions. I think there were 2 or 3 lines of additions that I noted up earlier in the open space areas. So then what I did is then I did the update to the summary percentages and stuff and the acreage from the POCD numbers, so to make sure that we were still, that everything is in track, and all the across the board, all the different in the categorizations matching what the way that the POCD breaks it down into dedicated managed and facility areas for open space, and the percentages, whether it's town, city, state, or private. I was able to put all those into and give you a better breakdown as far as on which areas, and then the comparison to how things have migrated to the current listing for 2020 compared to the 2016 POCD. So there's been additional, another couple hundred acre, almost 200 acres of additional open space was identified through this process. So I just want to go walk everybody through this process, where the parcel team is. And I'll take any questions or suggestions as we go forward, as we take a look over the rest of this month, going in and doing our research. But we've, I think, targeted things. And I'd also just like a general concurrence that we're not going to, if you feel that we should, is the 3 acres valid or not valid? I'd like to just kind of hear people's comments. Thank you.
Michelle, you had your hand up first. You're on mute.
Thank you. Michelle Fitzpatrick. I just want to say a couple things. One is, Tom, wow. I don't want any credit for any of this because all I did was give Tom the list. This is amazing, the amount of work you put into this. It's mind-boggling. I do agree that I think the 3 acres makes a lot of sense to just not worry about stuff less than that and focus on the 3 acres and larger. I think that makes total sense. And I really appreciate this effort. It's amazing, Tom.
Yeah, I echo that. I echo that as well. I did go wow when I saw it the first time. I do have a couple of other questions, but Karen, you raised your hand.
I did. I also wanted to say that Tom did this, and it's amazing. I asked questions and he helped me to understand all of this. But I didn't do this. Tom, you did, and it's an amazing job, and it's going to make it easier for a lot of different people in town to use it. I do have one question about the under 3 acres, and that is, and I think we might have talked about it briefly, Tom, about whether any of those pieces under 3 acres could or would be needed for those greenways or green belts. And do we need to just be aware of that as we say that we don't really need to worry about them?
When I say don't worry about, just the green wells and green belts, greenways is a separate issue from what I'm looking at. I'm looking at it. This is, if the town owns this property, what protections are in place to ensure that it stays as open space as opposed to allowing the town to just get rid of it and to turn it into residential areas or whatever. That's all. That's the focus. That was the intent of this review at this time. Applying to what areas and how we want to say that this is a greenway area. We haven't really thought about that as designating this particular parcel a part of this individual greenway or anything. We haven't got down to that level of fidelity in the greenway discussions, and I think that's going to be something for later on, like in the May-June timeframe, as we go through our stewardship objectives for the year. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Let me go to Bray, because Michelle, this will be your second bite at the
Yep,
apple.
I'm good with that. Yep.
Bray?
Oh, okay, right. Speaking, wonderful job, Tom. There's just a couple of quick things out there hanging. This list is that we have access to and we can look at is fabulous. The Conservation Commission has been stumbling in the dark for years and years, and very difficult to get any sort of collection that this presents in a workable fashion that we can access. So to the whole group, well done. One of the things that working with Avalonia as well as looking around in my own neighborhood is that there are some pieces of property they call paper streets, which means that if you, the town really doesn't know who owns it. It was a proposed subdivision street at one point, but it thought that it may connect to another piece of property. That property was never developed. It may be turned into an open space, and therefore that piece of that paper street then is up for grabs, and nobody knows really how to handle it. The other is that in my area, there is a piece of property that is wetlands. It is part of a group of other pieces of property that the town has taken on. It has sort of given it a name. It's part of it, but it was sort of a piecemeal pieces of property left over. And it's still in private ownership. I think that the person that owns it has already passed away, but it's one that it's no one's done anything about. And it's still on the tax rolls, or I believe, but it's one that they would say as you can't build on it because mostly it's wet. So there are these little pieces of property that do pop up that sometimes if nobody has any sort of restrictions on it, the neighborhood maybe will make it into a tree dump or a leaf dump, let's say something like that. Or it starts collecting garbage, and because nobody owns it, no one's cleaning it up. So these little small pieces of property, I think as we go through looking at the entire town, I think these will come up. The last statement I have is the University of Connecticut, and you mentioned Pine Island, which was interesting to see it there. Pine Island belongs to the state of Connecticut, but it's under the control of the University of Connecticut. And the university has put restrictions on what happens on the island. So there's now archaeological restrictions. I don't know to what extent in the future what it prevents, but it's something to look into and then put on our list there, because having used the island for educational purposes for years and years, I've always wanted to see it left open. And I'm hoping that Sima Evans, who I think's on the RTM, she would know about the restrictions on there, what's sort of in place at the moment. But I just wanted to throw those few items on top of this. This is wonderful. what we have.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate your comments there. I'll just respond to a few of them. As far as the Pine Island, I have that up right now, that you mentioned the 14 acres there. This all goes back again, because there was no deed posted, I couldn't take a look at anything. But here again, from the Conservation Commission's perspective, it's state property. It's really outside our scope. It's just like the federal property at the base. We really don't have any jurisdiction over it or any control of it, other than as good stewards. If the state tries to sell it, and that's where there was an amendment to the state constitution 2 years ago, where it says it now has to go through a public hearing process. And so, and that's where I think where we would come in and kick in as be aware of those type of situations if there was any action done either from at Yukon, Avery Point, or any of the other state parks or wherever, anything that's the DEP or DOT has. And that's where we need to kind of stay on top of it for the future. But as far as from us worrying about it anymore, I don't think, I'll have it listed here, but it's going to fall into the that we take no action on it. That's going to put the statement over here for no action, because it's state property. And that's where I did. As far as I did run into a couple of these that is, as I went to these various, I had multiple screens up on my computer. I'd have the deed on one side and the GIS map on the other. And then I would click around to see where I saw, is everything really kosher and stuff? And am I looking at the right parcel and everything? Because I did run into a couple of the streets that you talk about that were paper streets per se. And a lot of times they are abutting either the town property or a GOSA property or an Avalonia property. And do we want to spend the effort if these are very small parcels as far as from an open space perspective? And I think that's if we had a lot of time and a lot of effort and go through and try to put maybe change some things around in regard to how things are. And that's some of this, I did mark things, particularly in the town area. Let me see if I can find a couple of these where I do note that it's like it abuts, Pequot Woods of butter. So this town property right here of 1.2 or 1.3 acres, should this actually become, rather than having a standalone parcel that was brought in from a subdivision, should that really be sent over and made part of Pequot Woods if it's already abutting it, and that type of stuff? And there's also, likewise, there's areas up here. Here's a town property of 1.7 acres that abuts the reservoir. Should we be advocating that this be turned over to Groton Utilities? Okay, sold to them to make it part of the reservoir and have reservoir protection added to this. Those are, again, now you're down to this 1.74 acres. Do I worry about it or not? I don't know. Those are the type of things, but it already had protection because it was an open space area. So those are the kind of things that that are additional discussion points that we can have. Thank you.
I would suggest this was intended for protection analysis.
Right.
And then some of the other questions were on stewardship and what should we do about it. And, so you got to do A then B. So I would recommend that we table what we do with some of these until we get this complete. And this is a great job. I had a couple of questions yet, but Karen, you had a question?
No, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle, right underneath you on my screen.
Right.
Here.
Hi, this is Michelle again. I wanted to talk about the ones that have the CC list on them, and Karen, you weren't here for that, and part of it is this partly answers your question, but it also raises another question, and that is, we had made at the start of all of this, we went through and looked at the current greenways. We made a list of properties that or green belts. I always forget which way we use those words, but we made a list of the properties that were that would fill in those greenways, and that's where the ones that say CC list on them. That's where that came from. So we've already identified at least some of the larger properties that are in fact in those locations. But the issue that kind of goes along with that, and this is kind of, at this point, obviously this is all public because we're talking about it on a public meeting, but weren't we supposed to be kind of careful about acknowledging which of those properties we had interest in? And you know, now we were kind of trying to make that aspect of this a little bit less public, I thought. I'm sorry, what, Karen?
Yeah, you are correct.
You're breaking up and I'm not,
Oh yeah, you are too. I wonder what's going on.
I don't
Anyway.
know. I kicked out and then it rebooted itself. I don't know if that happened to everyone else. Can you hear me, Michelle? I see
Yeah,
you,
now
but
I
you're not
can.
moving.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little earlier when you were talking. So I wonder if it might be your system because nothing else has switched for me.
Okay.
All right, I think you are, yeah, you are correct, Michelle. We restricted this list of information from going to the plan. But Karen, you're breaking up. Can everyone else hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I think it might be just you, Karen. And I think you just froze.
All I heard was, I think it might be.
Yeah, I think she froze. All right. Well,
I see you now.
Okay. So you're intermittent, but it appears to be just limited to you. So
It says my network bandwidth is low.
yeah. Okay. Well, then I can't help you with that. So we'll continue. And I think a couple of things that right now, this is buried in the agenda and probably nobody will find it. But I do want to talk about as we distribute this list, because it's got a lot of great information on it, that we would hide the CC list designation. Tom, I'm going to get to what we do with this in a second, but that's a good point. I had forgotten about that, Michelle.
I was not, this was ignorance on my part. I didn't realize that the CC list I didn't know which CC list it was being talked about. I saw CC list. I just kept working with that database.
That's fine. We can clean that up. So as I'm reading this, I'm looking for my color legend. So orange and yellow and red in the action column appear to be the three major topics, where orange and yellow are specific actions dealing with, I guess, continue to clean up the ownership and protection aspect of it.
That's correct.
And the red is property being disposed of, which we would have to analyze on a case-by-case basis to see if we want to weigh in on the nature of the disposition.
That's correct.
Am I reading that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
So from a again, this is great stuff. It's not quite ready for. I was thinking earlier, just before the meeting started, we talked about logistics, but it's not ready for what I would call a formal update to the plan. However, when we get to the website things, I would like to propose that we, with some changes, that we provided as a draft, just the spreadsheet portion of just a spreadsheet, and we can kind of clean it up, just this tab, if you will, and the spreadsheet, because I think the auto links to the deeds, et cetera, I think is extremely useful. And it also provides the action list, if you will, especially the yellow and the orange items. And I know it's kind of hard to see it until I show you the website, but I would come back and table that question, but I do want to come back and make that proposition. What do you think is going to happen next, Tom, in terms of timeline and addressing the yellow and the orange? And from the rest of the commission to help you go after those specific colors, if you will?
Well, one of the things that in our discussions as I've been talking with our with the parcel team, was that we wanted to prioritize when we go in, what are we asking for from the deed recorders or the tax assessor's office in regard to what, and that's I said, well, I got to get this thing down some way to review this particular plot map. I'm still updating some of that stuff as far as on where, so I know I said, I now can say, I want to go take a look at this parcel with this plot map. I need to go see this in the town records. And those town records are physical. They are in a vault in the basement of the town hall that I need, that somebody, one of the three of us from the parcel team will go down and take a look at. But now that I've got this down to a manageable number, it wasn't 400 items to go take a look at, what's your prioritization? So now, it sounds like everybody's in agreement that these are the stuff in yellow is what we're going to look at, and when it's down to 10 items, I could deal with 10 items to in a morning taking a look at saying I want to take a look at this deed here, and then review the plot map that's associated with it. So that's I'm going to go to volume 54, page 108, and then take a look at the associated plat map that's with that recorded deed. And so that's very doable. And talking to Barbara, that to do 10 of them in the morning, you should be able to handle that, even as not as a regular investigator type of person. And that's all right. So maybe I'll be 2 mornings to go through all this stuff in yellow and get those updated and stuff.
All right. So in terms of the yellow items, you're saying that's go into the basement there, and that could be cleared out whenever we are allowed to go into the basement.
Right. And I'm anticipating I'll be able to go in next week.
Oh, okay. So that might be a 30-day.
Yes, that's my hope here.
Okay.
Between the 11th and the 22nd.
Okay. Bray, you had your hand up?
Yes, a quick question to Tom. As we move ahead with this long list, I know the town has a subcommittee that looks at different pieces of town property that they've recently acquired or been sitting on and are figuring out, do they sell them or not? And we've asked if on some of those properties that the town may have acquired within the last, let's say, few years that we are unaware of that might be a potential for hanging on to it as open space, perhaps because it's a linkage property or something unique about it. Do we have some way moving ahead that can be incorporated into that list, or we know what the town, that subgroup within the town is thinking about?
I am not aware of how the town what they're doing is. I was not aware that there's a separate group. From my general understanding right now, the planning department is the guys that and Bronk, the co-worker to our staff here, is off, trying to market different things, and they have an internal process. I think we've seen that written procedure as far as for when they are doing their reviews, as far as for disposition of a property to get it back on the tax rolls. Okay, because when the town owns it, it's not making money for the town, and so that's been the driving factor is how do I get things onto the tax rolls, and that's really the marketing portion of the planning department. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that one's, this is Larry. So that one is Bruce. We talked a while ago about getting the Conservation Commission to be input as part of that process that the planning department does. And I'm now trying to remember, did we get agreement that would occur? Or am I remembering how that got resolved or addressed?
Well, I actually do have a meeting tomorrow with the director about incorporating the Conservation Commission into a few property discussions moving forward. So I'll have a lot more information about that after tomorrow. I don't know the policy yet, but I do know it's in the works.
Yeah, it wasn't a question of approval. It was a question of our role is to provide input. And that's all we're just saying is there's a checkpoint that says, hey, do we have any input? And you're certainly free to ignore us, but we would like the opportunity to provide that input. All right,
Yeah.
if you could, okay, so,
Yeah, my understanding is the town manager is recommending that some properties do go to the Conservation Commission for recommendation. But I don't know which ones or how it's going to look yet. But.
all right. I mean, we tend to, because some of the town residents send us notes now about property A or property B, we get sucked into, I shouldn't say sucked in. We get asked for our participation in some of these, as we're becoming more active. So, but it's a lot easier if we're involved at the front end and we can then say to the, hey, we've looked at it, here's where it is. And it's not all one-sided. I mean, I think, as you know, 3 out of the 4 last ones, we supported the planning department's use of it for development, and only one, which was the Noank School, we kind of got into the thing about retaining it as open space. So, that again, that's the process, that we'd like to see. So on the orange ones, back to Tom. So that's the yellow ones. On the orange ones, where we're proposing deed restrictions, what do you think is the next set of steps that we would do on that?
Well, the next step is this proposal for a deed restriction, an omnibus, what I would call an omnibus deed restriction, where it be applicable to multiple deeds. And the reason I'm recommend that Barbara Tarbox helped on that recommendation was that that's how it was done when the town did the bonding issue back in 1988. There's actually a statement that's on those individual deeds that says, go see, take a look at this other volume, and there's a separate deed restriction. I need to go research that some more, and also talk to Betsy, the current town clerk, and see if she supports this. Then, if there's a support for it, then then what we would, as the Conservation Commission, would be going and making a recommendation to the town clerk to go prepare this process. And this is where you get the lawyers involved, okay? To prepare a deed restriction so that in the proper terminology and identification of the deeds that and the parcels that are to be restricted, okay? And then that would all be, then once that's all done, there would be a formal, thing written up and approved by the lawyers and stuff, and there's a bunch of legal stuff that has to happen, and then that has to then get recorded, okay? And then those would be reflected in the updates in the GIS system.
All right, that sounds like the most efficient way.
Yes.
My suggestion would be, could we update the action item in section 7? That would just kind of add that, because that omnibus or whatever the right term is.
I don't even know what the right term is at this point. I'm
Yeah,
still
okay.
learning.
Whatever the right term is. I think, that's because I think we had in there to review it, but now we can be more specific about that action and just to capture it. That would be my suggestion there.
Well, let me, before I do anything, is get a little bit smarter, and that's really talking to the town clerk, and she has a deed recorder person, and find out if they're willing to go down this path, and then how the town handles, who in the town is actually does these the deed preparation work. And I think that's all done by the town clerk's office at this point.
All right.
But she may not have budget to do this also, okay?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, if there's an agreement to do it versus the budget to do it, those are two different things. I get that, but at least if there's a agreed to plan supported by the town, the town clerk and the town manager and the planning department, we could at least then tee it up at the appropriate time when there's funding available.
Right.
So, yeah. All right. I want to talk about, I guess, publication of this, but in order to do that, I think I want to switch to the website discussion, because then you'll have the context. So let me share. screen. Where the heck is it? Why did it go away? Hold on, bear with me. I think I was clicking on some of your open deed items, Tom, and that then threw me off of the website.
The deeds will come up as a separate tab in your browser.
Yeah, well, something it didn't, but let me try it now. And I just went and brought it up again. So let me do another share myself and voila. Okay. So this right now is a live document. So this is out the home government departments. So where we are is under boards and commissions, right? We are listed, or not listed quite yet, but would be listed as the Conservation Commission. And I shared this, trying to remember what I shared. I remember the subcommittee, we reviewed it. How much of this did I go over in our last meeting? Not a
You
lot,
went
I
through
guess.
part
Okay.
of it, yeah. I can't
That's
remember
right.
all.
I think I might have had a PowerPoint with a couple of slides.
Yeah.
So this is,
Yes.
yeah, this is an active document. So the way this is set up is, this is kind of the intro and the overview of, and again, a lot of these have been lifted out of the open space plan, from a text point of view. Then as we go through here is, okay, it worked. All right, so there's the next page is conservation links. So these are all the folks we're working with. So I think last time the Mystic Garden Club came up and had some work with the Thames River Basin Partnership. Later on, Tom and I will talk about, we're presenting to them the open space plan later this month. So these are kind of topical links, and these are all live, right? So we can go, you go in here and you go quick, you go to Avalonia. Boy, it's not as quick as I would like. And let me go back again. Now this is the one that I was talking about. So I thought it would be, or the team thought it would be a good idea to have a section where key documents could be easily found by folks. So here is, and this is loaded. So you got the open space conservation plan. All right. So that's where that is. We've got the economic value model, which is the user manual part. And I think I need to relabel these drafts, right? Because these are
Yes.
approved and final. So that's one of the changes. Like there's another, it's not public yet because there's a slight cleanup that has to be done. So open space ordinance, and it's in here, and it's kind of, it just says draft here, but it should say draft on the first one, because it's useful, that we thought that some of these that we're discussing are there and available. The open space stewardship workbook is out there. And this is where I thought, again, as a draft, this is where I thought we could add in, Tom, your spreadsheet that would, a live Excel spreadsheet that would allow people to actually use it with a couple of caveats and some changes that I'd like to suggest. But go ahead, Tom, your hand's up.
One thing that, as far as from a live document, I would portray this, the spreadsheet right now with, after some cleanup and stuff, as the 2021 open space inventory that we're required to maintain, okay, as a commission. Rather than roaring, the open space conservation plan had the 2020 version of the inventory, and this would be the live update 2021 version. And it would be current. Okay, that's why it would be a separate document listed here as the current live inventory.
All right, because it is live and being worked, I thought that we wouldn't want to update the open space plan and bury it in there, and it has value as an active, real life spreadsheet. But my suggestion would be is only this tab, right? delete the other tabs. And also remove the CC list designations on here.
Yeah.
Just for the reasons that we mentioned before. But I think other than that, and then add in there a definition of the legend, maybe at the front end, add a little text perhaps to explain it. But I think this is a great resource that we could then continue to update as we move forward on it. So does that make sense to you folks? Michelle has her hand up.
I do. It's Michelle. I agree, absolutely agree that we should have an annual, like, and whether it's beginning of the year, end of the year, we should pick a time and every year have that update. If there is an update, post it as a separate document. And I also agree it's only that tab, but I think we should have even less columns than there are now. So I think we should very carefully think about what we want to publish as the inventory list. And I think it should be very minimal. And all the other stuff is important to us as a working document, but the one that gets posted for people to open up and look at, I think should have a minimal amount of information on it.
Well, I think all the data here is public data. It's just a question of Tom spent a lot of time to organize. Well, you earlier on the list, and then Tom to clean it up. It's a fair point. We need to review it. Let me make a suggestion that we got to keep it below 3. That I would recommend Tom and myself, and if someone else wants to join us, to keep it 3 or less, to go through and make that call on how we shrink it to allow it to publish it. Is that sound reasonable to you guys?
Michelle, I volunteer to be the third person because I'm on the edge of minimum amount of information. So I'll add the perspective of we shouldn't be publishing that information. So that's.
Are we?
Let's see, I'm sorry, that we would publish it with some restrictions.
Right, but I'm going to be on this side of more restriction is better than less restriction.
Okay, all right.
Quick
All right. Bray.
This is Bray. Quick question. Are the sheet that Tom has done, are we losing that, or are we putting that away for us as a working document? As our own document, and then you're going to shrink it down for more of a public document?
Yeah,
Well,
that's my intention is that the whole big thing with all those details, that's our working document. And we're going to keep adding to it. And we'll probably add a bunch more columns. But what goes to the public is going to be much minimal, very limited, and much more manageable for people that are just they can always ask us for more information, but we don't need to have it out there all the time.
Right.
Yeah, we're discussing what goes on this page as an active live document that's easy to get to. Our working document, we can have documents that are working documents that are not necessarily available to everyone, all right? Especially the stuff we talked about of hiding, the identification of parcels that we would be targets, if you will. So we need to be careful of that. All right, other comments? All right, I will set up a side meeting with the 3 of us to do that, and then I would put that and then update this to get it out there to Eric, who's Beeson, who's the IT guy that's been working with me. And he's been putting all this stuff together. The picture at the top, by the way, we now kind of lined up a photographer. So these are, you kind of look way in the back, it's kind of hard to see, but Randy Smith, his initials and name are there. So these are all from town of Groton properties or open space properties. And we're going to kind of spice it up with more of his still pictures, into the website. So I thought this was a neat one because it's wide. That was one of the reasons. It was wide, but he's got some other neat ones as well. So that was cool. All right, so that's why the context here on the document, so that's good. There is one that the Get Involved page. And this is about, and some of these need to be updated, obviously. There should be a play how to contribute videos or photos that, people want to put comments into us. These two are live, the Conservation Commission Powers and Duties page, which I think you have, but this is, an old one from time to time about what basically our charter is. Commission members is who are we. As we list projects, which are coming up, is the volunteer for projects. Maybe that one should be under projects. But then specific projects, the NIP survey, this links to the survey, which if I hit it, it'll say you've already taken the survey, so that doesn't help. But this will take you right to the Survey Monkey site to take that survey, and other stuff that we want to put in here for specific, targeted projects we're going to undertake. And then this one, the Value of Open Space video series, this takes you to the our sub playlist, which is in Groton Municipal TV. So we've got our, let me put this up. So we've got our front end here, which talks about each of these areas, and each one of these bullets, the intention is to provide a video. I mean, COVID's kind of screwed us up a bit. So we do have one video out there, which I think you've seen. So this is now available out on Groton Management TV. Saturday, Parks and Rec put a link in their Facebook page to point to the site, so people can look at it. So that's available as well. So that's that's a Conservation Commission website. What I did want to spend a little time in terms of, well, maybe I shouldn't, it's already 6:30. So, the team is Kristen, Ann, and myself as a subcommittee on that have been working through this. This is kind of what we came up with. If there's something you want to do off the top of your head, or maybe Bruce, if you could send them this website address, because you can't get to it. You got to get to it from here. You have this one, right, Bruce?
Yeah, I did. You emailed it to me last week. So yeah, I can forward it to those members.
Yeah, if you could forward that to everyone. And then what I would ask is, let me get that out, is that if you have changes to the text, recommendations on something that's missing or not there, or corrections or something, get that to, back to me. I'll get that back to the, to the outreach team so that we can update it. Ideally, I would like to get this live this month. So this is Monday, right? Well, I'll get more specific. If you can have a comment, get it to me by the end of the week, if that's agreeable to all you guys, so that we can get this live. It doesn't say it's the end. We're going to have a change control process, and Bruce and I and Eric are going to work that out on how we're going to then update it, because this is a live website, and when things change, this is kind of the platform we want to put our stuff on. So if we have a question, if we want to solicit feedback from the community on a certain topic, then this is the place to do it. We'll also, let me get back to home. So if you go down to news and announcements or upcoming events, one of the things we're going to have is announcements and events. Let's see if this goes back to, okay. That this page in here, there's going to be a events banner like I just showed you here. Don't have that yet. So that we can put in topical things or things that are only there for a month or a few weeks. So it'll gives us a place to put things, because as Bruce said earlier, that if it's on the homepage, those things come and go, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the town, it gets lost. This one would be specifically for the Conservation Commission. All right. So I've already had that discussion with Eric of putting that in. So that would be the event or news banner on the first page here. All right, got to remind myself to remind myself. So guys, if that's okay, Bruce will send that out to you, and you can kind of go through this. I'll set up a special meeting, as I said, with Tom and Michelle, and we'll kind of squeeze this out. And so that would then go to the, we'll add that to the documents page as one that the community can then get access and make use of. Any questions on the website or the Groton TV aspect of it? All right. The other thing on outreach, which is not quite in here, is an abstract. Tom, did that get sent out? The abstract or the short form of the plan?
I haven't sent any, I prepared some stuff and sent it to you, I believe.
Yeah, no, yeah, you sent it to me, but we never put it out to anybody else.
I did not, I don't do
Okay.
distributions.
So the question is, one of the comments was, gee, guys, you know, you got a 100-page document, it's very technical. Is there something more consumable? And gee, why don't you rewrite the whole thing to put out a short form? And we rejected that as a commission, but then said, should we consider having an abbreviated version? In other words, another document that's an abbreviated version. Tom took a whack at that. But I guess let me throw that open for discussion to see if, well, hold on, let me stop sharing so I can see everybody's face. So let me throw that open for discussion on, is that a worthwhile thing to do? And if so, then we could distribute Tom's document for review.
This is Brett.
Comments?
Who are you going to distribute it to? Just to us?
Us. Yeah. No, just to us, because you haven't seen it. I just
Right.
meant in the concept of it, number one. And then, because if you guys said that's a crappy idea, then why send it out, right? So that was my first question. Yes, Ann.
So many people requested a shortened version that I think it's worth considering. And if Tom has already prepared something, I think it would be worthwhile having at least the commission make comments on that.
Yeah, I agree with Ann.
Yep, stole the words out of my mouth.
Okay, there's a consensus, Tom. So could you send, because I know we had exchanged a couple, so could you send a latest version to Bruce, who could then send it out for review for the February meeting, and put it on the agenda for our February meeting? And then if we all like it, then it would be published on our documents page and our website with a little news banner that says we have one. See how that works? Gee, we're just like a real organization here. Okay. The last thing under outreach is the trail booklet. So Bray, do you have any update on that?
I've been working on trying to get some histories on each of the properties that now the town owns with their trails on it. And the information is coming in from a variety of sources, but it's still an ongoing process. The one question that I have is on a trail booklet, I don't know if any of us have mapped out a conceptual trail booklet. In other words, the maps, I'm are pretty much, a starting point would be what the Parks and Rec offers on the town's website. But for the other part of it, the verbiage, does anybody have particular format that they have in mind that they could share with me as a, to further my endeavor?
Yeah, so let me, so when I talked to Mark Berry on it, we kind of circled around and the thought was having a trifold, right? You open it up and you get a map, and then on the other fold, the two folds, you get a map. On the other fold, you get the history, which then still leaves you the back. He says that he has worked on those in prior municipalities. And he said he had them. So let me contact Mark to see if he can get you a live example of that forward to you. But that was the thought, and it'd be online, obviously. You could print out the trifold and then fold it over and put it in your pocket. I mean, that was kind of the thought.
Yep. Okay,
And the booklet would be, stack up for every trail, you'd have one trifold page. And therefore would be electronic, and you print it out rather than pre-printing books. So we kind of talked about that as an expense that should we need to do. And we thought, no, but we could have somebody print it out at a library if they really wanted, a full hard copy and they didn't have a printer. So, but anyway, that was the thought. So I can have Mark, I'll ask him to send an example of the trifold that he mentioned to me. All right, I will do that.
thank you.
All right, the next, okay, so that will close out the open space plan. Next item, I'm looking for, the next item would be the open space stewardship workbook. So that was out there as in the agenda, and we had, I guess, delayed till this meeting to have a discussion on it. So is the appropriate way, Tom, is for you to bring it up and people can throw rocks at it?
I don't know if we're ready to talk about anything in this thing, because I have not looked at this thing in months, literally.
Oh,
And I didn't even really notice that it was on the agenda because I didn't see it in the packet.
oh, I'm sorry. That's because we had discussed it was in the last packet. So, and there was no changes. So we said we weren't going to redo it.
Yeah. Because I haven't even looked at it to do anything with it in ages. Not to say I can't find it and bring it up, but
I can find it because it's on the pro forma website.
yeah, that's about it.
So it's right. So, yeah, there it is. So I do have it. So if you want to, or we push it out another month. So it's up to.
Well, I don't. To be honest with you, I don't know what we want to be doing with this document. I know that we wanted to have it on the shelf. I have spent no time to update it because of getting the original, getting the full plan out, and doing this parcel work. So I dedicated my time to parcels rather than the workbook, and because I felt that this can slide. To be brutally honest with you.
Okay. So should we put it on the agenda for next month? Do you think, or
If you
slide
can,
it for
yeah.
2 months?
Can you get a copy out to us before the end of it's a long document.
I will take a commitment to put an update to this out, because there's a number of changes things that now that we have the final version of the plan, that will reflect a lot of changes in the workbook. And so I believe I can get enough time between now and the 22nd when I head out of town to get a document out for the next meeting to make it available for the February meeting. So, if anybody else wants to help on me, let me know. But I can take an action item to update the workbook and have a revised draft available for the next meeting, and that would be set out before the next meeting by Bruce.
Tom, if you need help, I'll.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I will get something over to you probably later this week.
Okay,
Okay,
You need any more, I also will help.
okay, great. Ann and Karen, I will
We
send
gotta-
you the
we gotta
update
stop
draft to review before it goes out then. Okay.
All right, super. Thanks, guys. Then, oh Jesus, we're really on a roll here. Then we got the open space ordinance. So that one we did review a couple of times. Yes, Tom.
I was on the impression that what was supposed to happen with the open space ordinance is that this was going to get given to Bruce to have it passed to staff for their review, and then they were going to report back here. So I don't know if Bruce has an update.
No, I don't have an update on that yet. All I know is that Mark Berry looked at it so far, but we haven't got any official comments on it back. Yeah, no, I can redistribute it to everyone if that's consensus, and try to see if we can get some staff comments on it and reviewed for you to respond to.
All right, yeah, I would request that that we get staff review so that we can get their feedback by our February meeting.
Did anyone draft a cover letter on that? Go over it.
No, I suppose I could whip one off.
Or I can do it. I'm just either one.
It's
But
it's
it
pretty
would
simple.
have to go. It would have to go be signed by probably you, Larry, the chairman.
All right.
Well,
Well, like there's one paragraph, please find attached the December 1st draft. Yes, Tom.
Well, the reason I kind of, mentioned before here in regard to having staff review, I think the critical thing was getting from Parks and Recs. Because as I've done more research on here with all these individual parcels, what's critically missing here in the wording of the draft ordinance is what actual properties is it going to handle. When we have a POCD that has 3 categorizations of open space with different levels of responsibilities are not clearly defined, because I can cite that if there's facilities there, obviously the Board of Ed, Public Works owns those properties and should be taking all the kind of stewardship, and so they should not be included as open space. I can see in the facilities in the managed areas, really that's Parks and Rec. If you go take a look at the charter for the Parks and Recs Commission, they actually have the responsibility in their charter to take a look at providing I'll read the thing, their power and duties. The commission shall make all rules and regulations subject to the approval of the town council for the care, operation, and government of all recreation facilities, parks, playgrounds, beaches, and shall have other powers and duties shall be specifically prescribed by the town council. So by my definition, to some degree, we would be getting only to those parcels that would be purely open space. But when I go take a look at the current listing, there's cross-referencing between Parks and Rec and what's ever left open is open space. That I take a look, for example, a good example is the Crosswinds, next door to me, I've got an open space area. It's showing up in our because there's no trails, there's no playground, it's just open space. It's in the open space categorization. However, Parks and Rec is mowing it every week. Okay, so that's where I'm talking. There's some confusion as far as what parcels are we really talking about. And so to some degree, I think in parallel with the review being done is that we better define which parcels are really covered by the ordinance itself. And to do that, I think it was a 2-step process. One is for us to go to the Parks and Rec Commission and says, what parcels are you using that in accordance with your guidelines and your requirements are you managing today, and get their list to start with.
So Tom, given the work you just did on this spreadsheet, if you added a column next to park type map. And that one would be, a stewardship thing that says Parks and Rec, which ones of these are you managing? I mean, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, pretty much. I need, and I was gonna volunteer to go to the Parks and Recs Commission meeting next Wednesday at 7 p.m. And kind of talk to them and says, hey, do you guys, what's the list that as a commission to commission here? But it may be more appropriate now that I notice that there's a chairman's meeting that's on next Monday. Is this to be more of an appropriate to how do we handle joint chairman to chairman things to be done? I noticed that that's being, are you going to be attending that? I don't know which is a more appropriate meeting to be doing this at.
Yeah, no, I was invited to that. I would say that when we talk about publicizing this, we can also talk about, is there an abbreviated list? Obviously it wouldn't be the state stuff or the city stuff. Can we shrink the list that way to give to Parks and Recs, right? So, but we can talk about that, which would kind of be my thought, rather than maybe asking them, say, here's the list we have, because they'll come back with a list and we'll go, well, but you didn't address all these parcels. So I think my druthers would be to give them the list of things that are owned by the town and have them tell us which ones they are responsible for. Now, we don't have to necessarily have that by Monday, but I think we can agree that is that the action plan, and at Monday's chairperson's meeting, I could bring it up and say, well, if that's okay, we'll send you that list that they could respond to. Yeah, Bray?
Greg, in the past, the chairperson's meeting is more of the town presenting projects that are going on to the chairs of, or representatives from different commissions. It doesn't have to be the chair. And that person then goes back to respective commission and shares what the town's going on. So the chairpersons wasn't so much a place to, I think Tom was a suggestion of going to the Parks and Rec Commission, but actually I think it's even simpler than that would be to go to just to Mark Berry and just ask him, because I'm not sure his commission has duties of interest. Let's say the golf course, for instance, is a huge part of their discussions, I understand, on the Park and Rec Commission, and not so much the day-to-day responsibilities of different properties. That list, I think, would be under Mark, and he would know better. So the chairperson's meeting is one. I was invited to it, but it looks like that Larry's going to attend as an information opportunity by the town to share with us what they're doing. And you can ask some questions, Q&A at the end, and then we take that information back to the next meeting of our commission to share. So this discussion about what properties are being managed and not, we need to do some homework before it ever goes to the chairperson's meeting. That's not really the forum for it. That's my suggestion.
All right, well, that's fair, since they didn't have, to my knowledge, they didn't have one all last year. So, so this would be the first one I've attended, but yeah.
Right. It's been maybe 2 years since they've been doing it. They haven't done it. They, for a while, they were putting out a newsletter to everybody, but we don't see those anymore.
All right, fair enough. I'll combine, there's a couple of things with Mark Berry. I can just add this to that and have that discussion with him. All right, so that's fair. I will accept that recommendation.
I will give you the list. I will take another action here because it's fairly quickly for me to give you the parcels that are questioned as far as what, so that they could just kind of go down the list and tick the ones that he's doing. I can provide you that in a very cleaned up format.
All right, well, also the ones that we don't, that we want to ask him, should he be doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That would be good. All right, next item on, I'm checking my time here. The next item on the agenda is plastics update. And I think the major one is the NIPS survey. Do you have any stats on the latest survey, Bruce?
I do. So, what happened? So, a few of you members are new since the last time we did a Survey Monkey survey with the Conservation Commission, but I don't have direct access to it like I did before. Apparently, the town account, only a couple people can use it at a time, and it's assigned to computers now, so they kind of tighten their restrictions on it. But I do have a link here, and I can share my screen to show what I'm looking. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
So, yeah, so this is the NIP survey. It's been up for almost a month now. And this is, I'm pretty sure it's live. So what we have here, we have question 1, 160 people answered. So we are getting some responses. So the first question, do you think NIPS tiny liquor bottles create a litter problem? It looks like we have, 70% saying major problem, a little under 20% saying somewhat of a problem, even less than that, less than 10% minor problem, and looks like less than 5% not a problem at all. And here's a response here.
Fairly overwhelming. Okay.
Yeah, I would say so. Question number 2, do you support elimination of NIPS? Let me see. 74% or 117 people highly support it. 7% or 11 people somewhat support. 6% or 10 people little support. And 19 people or 12% do not support the elimination of NIPS.
All right, so it's an 80-20 thing. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Question 3, do you support state legislation to ban NIPS statewide? We have 72% or 114 people strongly supporting it, 9% and 15 additional people somewhat supporting it, 4%, seven people little support, and 14% no support. So that's again another 80-20 split.
Another 80-20, yep. All right, now let's take it the other way.
Yeah, and this is question 4, town demographics. It looks like 127 people, or 96% of the respondents, said that there were residents of Groton. We only had one person say, I'm a business owner who sells bottled liquor directly to customers. And only 3 people that said, I'm a business owner who serves liquor directly to customers. So although and only 131 people finished the survey, it looks like 160 started. There's only 4 questions, but I guess 4 people dropped out.
I kept it really short. I mean,
yeah, we tried.
Yep, I know. When you combine Q4 with the other questions, you got those cross tabs.
I don't know if I have all those metrics now, like I did. I do have data trends.
I mean, because that was why we asked that. Oh, that's by
yeah, but I mean, what we intended to do, I mean, we wanted a lot more business owners to respond to this, but so far we haven't had too many at all.
All right. Eugenia's out there. So one of the things is that that she was marshaling the GCA to go, try and contact and get them to I shouldn't say force, but you request directly to fill out the survey. So it doesn't look like we got a lot. We got three we got one that looks like a liquor store and three that look, they're probably restaurants, I guess, is the way that I kind of interpret that.
Yeah, it looks like one liquor store and 3 restaurants
Or something, yeah.
But
All
I
right, so
know,
not, yep,
I was just gonna say, I know Larry and I both interviewed with The Day, the newspaper, and I didn't see the article come out on it, but I think that they are gonna write an article about the survey and that will go out and hopefully, get some more responses from businesses. Try to go over this.
yeah.
I did
Yep.
see
No,
Eugenia raised her hand. Larry, if you wanna.
Okay, yep, let's give her the floor here because she was supporting the survey per se.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
first of all, congratulations for sticking through this whole meeting to this point.
Yeah. Well, I was very interested in hearing what you all have found out from the survey so far. And if you were to look at your numbers from 12:30 on, I noticed that there was a spike on 12:31. That was when we sent out the survey. We sent it out on New Year's Eve. And we have had a really good open rate on it. So people are very interested in the issue. So we had like 66% of our membership, which is a list of 141 people who actually opened it. But the numbers go down for the click on the survey. And so that was interesting. So we think that we probably had about 27 to 30 some people actually do the survey through the link that we provided on our alert that we sent out.
Well, that's actually a good hit rate given normal survey
That
demographic.
is an excellent hit rate. The open rate and the click rate are very high for nonprofit organizations. So it's actually very good. And that's what I wanted to share with you, that we probably did get a number of people to participate in the survey. Unfortunately, I think that you might need to send the survey to the emails that I provided you with, Larry, of the 7 liquor stores that responded, so that maybe you can get a few more liquor stores, rather than expect that they saw that article on the 24th of December in the Day. You know,
So, yeah.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
I've got the link was in the article, and I guess the link is on the web page, right? I think I had it there. Let me just double check that, make sure I've got the link. Yeah, monkey survey. So I'm assuming that link would work. It would, if somebody didn't take it, it wouldn't have, it won't then tell me I've already taken the survey. All right, so I have that link.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's telling you if you try to go enter a second time that you can't do it. So that's
Right.
working.
Yep, no, that works. That's fine. Okay, so I have the link. All right, I'll send that out. And I think I said something wrong earlier. I think I said wow, what did I do? I'm pretty sure that I have the Parks and Recs do the NIP survey as well. I'm now trying to remember. Let me double check that.
I don't remember seeing them on the emails. Were they on the emails?
No, I'm talking about there's like 5,000 folks on the Parks and Rec Friends page. So I thought I had sent them. Let me just check that and double check that with Jessica to see if that's out there, to try and get, get the people a little different way. All right, I'll check that on the NIPS side.
And we're going to send a reminder to the people who did not respond to the email. In other words, we're going to resend that. And that's about 50 people, except that what I'm finding is that a number of people that were on that email are not from the town of, don't live in the town of Groton. So there were probably good reasons why they didn't respond to it.
Because I think we did ask that question, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I guess the other thing on plastics. Oh, I already talked about who I talked to there. Kind of change. So, does any other comments or items on the NIPS plastic survey? All right, let me try and zip through this thing, see if I can get through this in the next few minutes. We had some action items. We already talked about GC3, tree canopy. That one is, I did get some notes from Conrad from the town council of trying to get an interest up on tree canopy in terms of getting an ordinance, part of the ordinance. Tom, can't remember if I sent you that or not.
No, I did not get that.
Yeah, which was more of a planning and zoning thing that says, change that. So if a developer, wipes out 10 trees, he's got to plant 100 trees, something to that regard. So he's kicking that off and sent a request to us to address that. So I guess I can carry that forward to the future. Now, two other ones I think came from you, the North American Wetlands Council and the Deep Forest Action Plan. Were those yours, Tom?
That's what I discussed earlier.
Yes, yep. Very good. On the objectives section 7, I did go through it and I highlighted items. We did talk about each one of the ones that I thought highlighted that we should talk about today. So I don't have to go over that again. So I think we're at least, even though there's a lot of actions there, we're kind of keying in on the, some of the top priority ones. So that's fine. The next item is report of chair. I've talked about everything. Mentioned the 119 presentation to the Thames River. And I was going to give a thank you to Kimberly Drelick for her article. It was I thought a well done, well researched article, and Bruce gave some good quotes that got into the article. So an attaboy to Bruce as well on that. And that's all I had. Made it to 7. All right, other, yes.
Just to go back to the questionnaire, the survey on the plastic on the nip bottles. So where, the big picture, do we stand on that? Is the survey over, or does it have an endpoint?
Yeah, it's going to be up through, given the fact that it came out over the holidays, thought we'd leave it up through most of January. So it will be at our next, I guess, Bruce, at our next February meeting would be the final survey results. And we'll probably keep it open till about a week before that. I mean, just whatever long it takes for the results to be, finalized or compiled or presented, I guess a week before, so you can get it in the agenda meeting, right? The agenda package.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, there's really no rush to end it. I mean, the whole purpose of the survey is kind of to, maybe help, advise the town council on whether or not they want to recommend the legislation when it comes out. But yeah, I think we originally discussed that there's a timeline of about a month. Yeah, I can end it about a week before the meeting and have Parks and Rec kind of certify the results and try to get some, a little better analysis of the responses outside of what I had.
Right, yeah, that's what I said, the crosstabs, but
Yeah.
it doesn't look like there's a lot of crosstabs. But,
It's only 4
yes,
questions,
Karen.
but
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a question about Kathleen Stouffer's letter about a deposit on NIPS. Where does that play into?
the strategy is, there's a move to present a ban on NIPS. But historically, the liquor, the
Liquor
let's
Commission?
call it the lobbying, the liquor, yeah, the liquor lobbyist, say that fast 3 times, have kind of pushed back on that. So there's some sense that says, oh gee, is there a position that you put a, 15, 20, 25 cent deposit on that. She is interested in a deposit because that provides a revenue source and jobs for the folks that she
Yep.
supports, right?
Yeah, I understand that. She actually presented that last year and was lobbying for it last year. But as a conservation commission, are we supporting that? And I ask that because it's still plastic going into the environment. Do you know what I'm saying?
No. It's a question of input, all right? So she saw the article, she called me up, and we had a discussion on it. And I was gathering information on the recycling program she has, what her volumes were, et cetera, because if I was the town council, I would say, what are the options? The options are do nothing, go support a deposit, or support banning. I mean, those are the basic 3 options. So so this is called due diligence on that. From a commission point of view, we'll get the survey back, we'll have this discussion, and prior to going to town council, collectively, we will have a position on that is supported by, the majority of the commission.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right, yes, Tom?
Just going back, I made a mistake here when we were on item 463 on the North American Wetlands Council. What that was is it was an informational item where that council gives grants called NACA grants, NAWCA grants, and for general information is that GOSA was awarded a grant and is in the process of receiving that to support their Sheep Farm South procurement. That's still ongoing. They're still awaiting finalization of all the documents, but they're going to get over about $100,000 from NACA to support which is one of the items that was outlined in our support for that in the open space plan. And so it's congratulations to them, because it's a very competitive nationwide grant.
So that puts them over the top then.
Well, it's gonna get them. That 100,000 when they went up and updated their thermometers, that was included in that. So they're still. That's why it was worth going up and updating the thermometers. But so they're still. But they have enough funds. They have enough funds between their savings and stuff to be able to execute the documents as soon as the state finalizes their review of the deeds and the easements and that type of stuff. They've been going back and forth answering questions with the lawyers and stuff. Part of the problem is that the state, because of COVID, things have been very slow. And then also the GOSA's lawyer died. And so they had to resubmit some stuff along the way here in the October timeframe. So it's both sides things are dragging out. They have until the end of March to finalize everything. So they're still hoping to meet that deadline. So
thank you. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion.
Adjourn.
Second.
Karen made the motion. Michelle seconded it. For a minute there, I didn't think anybody was going to second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, and we will meet in February, and I will set up a meeting with the, on the, I guess, the Excel spreadsheet, and I have to set up another one on the outreach subcommittee as well. So, and I'll work on setting that up this week. All right, thank you all, and I'm looking forward to your feedback on the website by the end of the week. Have a good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.